One of the things that makes the LSAT difficult is the time constraint, right? So what that means is that you need to work on your pacing a lot. So you may have heard me talk about the 3 phases of LSAT prep: accuracy, pacing, endurance. Accuracy is when you're doing untimed work to build the foundation and get familiar with different question types. Pacing is when you get better at allocating your time over the course of the section, meaning you're going faster on easier questions, building up a time bank that you can then apply to the tougher questions that come later. Then finally, there's endurance, which is being able to last for the entire exam, 2 sections back to back, a 10-minute break, 2 more sections back to back, so that you're not fatigued by the 3rd or 4th section.
Okay. This is the only question I for the logic games.
Of course. So, I mean, this applies to all of it as well. I mean, pacing is really the name of the game. Once you get pretty good with your accuracy and you understand the different question types in logical reasoning, for example, or you know what to look for in a reading comprehension passage as well, then you can start to think about, okay, well, how do I make sure I can make it to the end of the section without running out of time? And part of that comes down to making sure you don't get bogged down on individual tough questions or any really aspect of the section. And you also don't spend more time on the easy questions than you need to.
Okay.
So you don't want to spend, if you could solve a game in 7 minutes, or you could even solve a reading comp passage in 7 minutes, you should not spend the full 9 minutes on that passage, because there could be a tougher passage later that needs those additional 2 minutes. So there's not a whole lot of value to double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking. You're not going to make the question more right if you already got it right and it's a relatively easier question. You're better off using that time for a tougher question that needs it. For a hard game or a hard passage, you can spend more than 9 minutes because it will typically be balanced out by an easier question where you can save time. Similarly, in logical reasoning, you might have on average, let's say, 1:25 for a question, in a single question. But you don't need to time yourself to 1:25 for every single question, because there is variation in difficulty. So for students aiming for top scores, and this includes you, I typically recommend that you aim to solve the first 10 questions in a logical reasoning section in roughly 10 to 12 minutes. Mm-hmm. That is less than 1:25 per question. But you then save time that you can apply to the tougher questions that come later. And because there is a general order of difficulty in logical reasoning, it's safe to assume the first 10 questions will be easier on average than the harder questions that come later. So don't time yourself on individual logical reasoning questions ever.
Okay.
The second thing is that if you're getting stuck on the method of reasoning in the stimulus, you don't understand it fully, you're just getting stuck entirely, that's okay for now. You still have 5.5 months till test day. There's plenty of time to improve. So I want you to work on pacing because you already understand what they're asking you for. Just some of them are hard. Some of them might have the vocabulary, the language barrier. And these are things that you review afterwards. So one of the things that you're practicing also is not getting bogged down, not getting stuck on individual questions because the clock is ticking. If a question is stumping you, that's okay. Skip it, flag it, and then you'll come back to it later. I'll personally flag 4 or 5 questions in a single logical reasoning section because I just don't want to deal with them in the moment. I risk getting bogged down. I'm not seeing it clearly, but I move on. I come back to it. Now I have a fresh perspective. I've broken out of that tunnel vision, and I can then get it right typically. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.